Creativity is one of the deepest needs of the human heart. Every person, whether he knows it or not, longs to express something unique. Some express through painting, some through music, some through dance, some through science, some through the way they live daily life. Osho begins the journey of this book with the reminder that creativity is not limited to professional artists. It is the very essence of being alive. He says society has conditioned us to believe that only a chosen few are creative: the poet, the painter, the sculptor, the architect. But the truth is very different. Every child is born with an open sky of creativity. The problem begins when family, school, and culture start pressing their own ideas, rules, and demands on the child. Slowly, the natural spark gets covered under layers of fear and imitation. Instead of asking, "What do I want to create?" the child begins to ask, "What will please others?" This is how creativity is slowly killed. Osho explains that creativity is not a luxury. It is not something extra that can be added later in life. It is our inner breath. When we stop being creative, we stop living fully. That is why so many people feel empty and dry even if they have wealth, education, or power. Something within remains unsatisfied because the river of creativity is blocked. In the foreword, he tells us that creativity is not about talent. It is about freedom. A person who lives with awareness can turn even ordinary activities into art. Cooking food, cleaning the house, walking in the garden, speaking with a friend. All these can be acts of creativity if they are done with love, freshness, and presence. Creativity means bringing your whole being into whatever you do. He also warns that the biggest enemy of creativity is fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of being judged. Fear of failure. Fear is poison for the creative spirit. That is why Osho puts so much stress on meditation and awareness. Meditation helps us to see fear without being controlled by it. When fear drops, creativity blossoms naturally. Another important point in the foreword is that creativity is deeply connected with joy. When you create something, you feel alive. You feel you are part of the dance of existence. Existence itself is continuously creative. Trees grow, flowers bloom, rivers move, seasons change, galaxies are born. Life never stops creating. When you create, you are simply flowing with the very pulse of life. That is why it gives such deep joy. But this joy comes only when you create for the sake of creation, not for the sake of reward. Society has trained us to run after recognition. We want applause, money, or fame. But Osho says these things are secondary. If you create only for recognition, you miss the real treasure. The real joy is in the act itself. When you paint because you love colors. When you write because words are dancing inside you. When you sing because your heart is overflowing. This joy is the fragrance of true creativity. Osho concludes the foreword by saying that this book is not just about theories. It is a call to live differently, to drop fears, to break the chains of conditioning, to rediscover the childlike innocence that we all once had. He invites us to open the door to freedom, because without freedom, no creativity is possible. And this naturally leads us to the first step in the journey. If creativity is the fragrance, then freedom is the soil. Without freedom, there can be no creativity. So now let us step into the first chapter, the fragrance of freedom. Chapter 1. The fragrance of freedom. Creativity, Osho says, is like the fragrance of a flower. You cannot force it. You cannot manufacture it. It arises naturally when the flower is alive, healthy, and rooted in the right soil. That soil is freedom. Without freedom, the flower withers. Without freedom, creativity cannot blossom. A slave cannot create. A person trapped in fear cannot create. Freedom is the very air that creativity breathes. But the freedom Osho speaks of is not political or social only. It is deeper. It is the freedom to be yourself, to follow your inner voice rather than the noise of society, to live without masks, to live without pretending. Most of us are prisoners of invisible chains. We act according to the opinions of others. We do what will give us respect. We suppress our own desires because we are afraid of being rejected. Slowly, we lose touch with who we are. We may become successful in the eyes of the world, but inside we feel hollow. That hollowness is the result of missing freedom. Osho reminds us that society has always been afraid of creative people. Why? Because the creative person cannot be controlled easily. He does not just repeat traditions. He questions. He experiments. He creates his own path. That is why societies try to make people obedient rather than creative. They reward imitation, not originality. True freedom begins when you dare to drop fear, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of being different. Fear is like a prison wall. When you look closely, you will see that this wall is not made of stone. It is made of your own imagination. The day you stop feeding fear, the wall disappears, and suddenly you feel a new energy flowing inside you. That is the beginning of creativity. Freedom also means accepting responsibility for your life. Many people think freedom is doing whatever they want, without limits. That is not freedom. That is childishness. Real freedom is maturity. It means you choose your actions with awareness. You live authentically. You are ready to face the consequences of your choices. When you accept this responsibility, life gives you strength, and that strength becomes creativity. Osho gives the example of a musician. If he plays because others demand, his music will be lifeless. If he plays out of fear of losing fame, his notes will be false. But if he plays simply because the song is flowing through him, then his music has the power to touch hearts. That is the fragrance of freedom. It cannot be faked. It comes from within. When you live with freedom, every act becomes creative. Washing dishes can be meditation. Walking in the park can be poetry. Speaking with a friend can be music. Freedom transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. Osho says existence itself is freedom. Look at the sky. Birds fly without permission. Rivers carve their own path. Trees grow in all directions. Existence does not live by rules written by man. It lives by its own inner law, what Osho calls dharma. To be creative is to live in tune with this natural freedom. The fragrance of freedom is subtle but powerful. Once you taste it, you can never go back to slavery. You realize that your real wealth is not money, not fame, not possessions, but the ability to live freely and create joyfully. Osho ends this chapter by reminding us that freedom is preparation. Once you free yourself from fear and conditioning, you are ready for the next step. A painter does not begin with colors immediately. First, he prepares his canvas. In the same way, once freedom is tasted, the inner canvas of life must be prepared for creativity to flow. And this brings us naturally to the next chapter, preparing the canvas. Chapter 2. Preparing the canvas. Osho says that before an artist begins to paint, he spends time preparing the canvas. He makes it clean, smooth, and ready to receive colors. If the canvas is dirty, rough, or torn, the beauty of the painting will not appear. In the same way, before creativity can bloom in our lives, our inner space must be prepared. Without preparation, our creativity will be shallow and fragile. With preparation, it becomes a river that can flow endlessly. The preparation Osho speaks of is not about learning techniques or collecting information. It is about creating inner silence. Our minds are crowded with thoughts, worries, plans, fears, and desires. This noise does not allow creativity to enter. Creativity needs space. Creativity needs openness. A noisy mind is like a cluttered room. There is no place for new things. To prepare the canvas means to clear that room, to make space for fresh energy to come in. How can we prepare this inner canvas? Osho gives a simple answer. Through meditation. Meditation is the soap and water that washes the dust of the mind. It is the brush that smooths the surface of the canvas. When you sit silently, watching your breath, watching your thoughts, slowly the storm inside you begins to settle. You start seeing gaps of silence. In those gaps, creativity enters. But Osho also warns that meditation is not effort. If you force silence, it is another noise. Real meditation is relaxation. It is allowing things to settle by themselves. Just like muddy water becomes clear if left undisturbed, the mind becomes pure if you sit silently and let it rest. This clarity is the ground of creativity. Preparing the canvas also means dropping unnecessary baggage. Many people carry anger, guilt, and resentment from the past. These emotions act like stains on the canvas. No matter what you paint, the stains will show through. If you let go of the past, your inner canvas becomes fresh and alive. Forgiveness is part of preparation. Acceptance is part of preparation. Another element of preparation is playfulness. A child does not prepare with seriousness. He prepares with joy. Osho says, do not make meditation into a duty. Do not make silence into a burden. Approach it with playfulness. Sing, dance, laugh, celebrate. These playful acts clean the dust faster than seriousness. When the heart is light, creativity flows like a song. Osho gives the example of Zen painters. Before painting, they spend hours in meditation, drinking tea, sitting silently, watching nature. When they finally pick up the brush, they do not think much. Their hand moves naturally. The brush becomes an extension of their being. This is possible only because their canvas was already prepared within. He reminds us again that creativity is not something we do. It is something that happens through us. But for it to happen, we must be ready. We must be open. We must be empty. The canvas must be waiting. If the canvas is ready, existence itself will paint through you. And here Osho prepares us for the next step in the journey. Once the canvas of our inner world is clean and open, we must know the guiding principles of creativity. Osho calls them the 3 C's: creativity, consciousness, and celebration. These 3 are like the primary colors from which the whole painting of life is made. So now, let us move into the next chapter. The 3 C's. Chapter 3, The 3 C's. Osho tells us that the journey of creativity rests on 3 pillars. He calls them the 3 C's: creativity, consciousness, celebration. If even one of these is missing, life becomes unbalanced. But when all 3 move together, life becomes a flowing dance. The first C is creativity. Creativity is the energy to express, to explore, to give birth to something new. It is not limited to art, music, or poetry. Creativity is the way you live your daily life. If you live mechanically, repeating the same patterns without awareness, you are uncreative. But if you live each moment freshly, adding your unique flavor, you are creative. Cooking a meal with love, arranging flowers with care, speaking words with compassion. All these are acts of creativity. Creativity means adding a touch of your soul into whatever you do. The second C is consciousness. Without consciousness, creativity can be dangerous. A creative mind that is unconscious may invent weapons of destruction, may create systems of exploitation, may use his gifts to harm. Consciousness gives direction. It is the light that guides the energy of creativity so that it serves life, not death. Consciousness means awareness of who you are, why you are acting, and what impact your actions create. When creativity is rooted in consciousness, it becomes a blessing for the whole world. The third C is celebration. Creativity and consciousness together reach their peak when they flower into celebration. Celebration is the fragrance of a fulfilled life. Celebration means gratitude, joy, and the ability to enjoy each moment. If you create but do not celebrate, your work becomes dry. If you are conscious but not joyful, your life becomes serious and heavy. Celebration adds music to consciousness and beauty to creativity. It completes the circle. Osho explains that these 3 C's are like 3 notes in harmony. Creativity is energy. Consciousness is awareness. Celebration is joy. Together they make life a symphony. If you have creativity without consciousness, you may be talented but dangerous. If you have consciousness without creativity, you may be aware but dull. If you have creativity and consciousness without celebration, you may be efficient but not alive. But when all 3 unite, life becomes whole. He gives an example. Imagine a gardener planting flowers. If he is only creative, he may design a beautiful garden but still carry ego, pride, or ambition. If he is creative with consciousness, he will plant with care, love, and respect for nature. If he is creative with consciousness and also celebration, then every act of digging, planting, watering will be filled with joy. The garden will not only look beautiful, it will radiate life energy because celebration is flowing through the gardener. Osho says the ultimate purpose of life is to become a celebration. Creativity and consciousness are the paths. Celebration is the destination. When you reach celebration, you are no longer separate from existence. You are in tune with the stars, the rivers, the winds, the trees. Life itself becomes your song. And how do we bring these 3 C's into daily living? The answer, Osho says, is very simple. By relaxing in whatever you do. By not making life a tension or a competition. By dropping the restless struggle and learning the art of relaxed action. This brings us to the next chapter. Relax in action. Chapter 4. Relax in action. Osho reminds us that most people think action means tension. If you are serious, disciplined, and restless, people believe you must be working hard. If you are relaxed, they call you lazy. But the truth is exactly the opposite. Real action arises only out of relaxation. When you are tense, your energy is divided. Half of it goes into the work, and half is wasted in worry, fear, and doubt. You may be running around, but inside you feel exhausted. This is not true action. This is struggle. But when you are relaxed, your whole energy is available. You act with totality. And because you are not wasting energy in inner conflict, your action becomes graceful, efficient, and creative. Osho gives the example of a musician lost in music. His fingers move effortlessly. He does not struggle with the instrument. He flows with it. A dancer in deep joy does not think of each step. Her body moves naturally, almost by itself. This is relaxed action. It is action without the burden of the ego. It is action that feels like play. Relaxation does not mean inactivity. It is not about lying down and doing nothing. It means whatever you do, do it with ease. Do it without inner conflict. Even great effort can be relaxed effort. A marathon runner may be putting in immense energy, but if he is flowing with joy, he feels light. His body may sweat, but his heart is relaxed. The secret of relaxed action is trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in life. Trust that existence supports you. When you trust, you stop fighting unnecessarily. You stop forcing things. You allow life to move through you. This trust makes every action smooth. Osho says tension comes from the ego. The ego wants to prove, to compete, to show off. The ego is always in a hurry. But creativity is not a race. A flower blooms in its own time. A child grows at his own pace. The sun rises slowly, not in a rush. If you understand this, you stop forcing and start flowing. And when you flow, you relax. Relaxation is also the foundation of meditation. When the mind is relaxed, it becomes silent. In that silence, new insights arise. If you are tense, even meditation becomes another struggle. You sit with closed eyes, but inside you are fighting with thoughts. This is why Osho says, forget about controlling the mind. Simply relax. Let things settle by themselves. Out of this natural relaxation, true creativity blossoms. When you master relaxed action, even the busiest day feels like play. Work becomes worship. Every activity becomes an expression of joy. Life stops being a burden. It becomes a dance. Osho ends this chapter by preparing us for the next step. If relaxed action is the key, then what direction should our action take? How do we know we are not moving against life? The answer lies in learning from nature. For nature is the greatest master of relaxed and harmonious action. And so, the next chapter opens the door to a deeper understanding. Act in harmony with nature. Chapter 5. Act in harmony with nature. Osho says that the greatest teacher of creativity is nature itself. Look at the trees, rivers, mountains, clouds, and stars. They are continuously creating. A tree creates leaves and flowers. A river creates valleys and paths. The earth creates forests, fruits, and food. The sky creates endless forms of beauty. But none of this happens with tension. Nature never struggles. Nature never competes. Nature creates in harmony. To be creative, Osho explains, you must learn to act in harmony with nature. This does not mean imitating nature blindly. It means tuning yourself with the natural rhythm of existence. If you go against nature, you will always be in conflict. If you flow with nature, you will be in peace. Most of our suffering comes from fighting with life. We want the seasons to change faster. We want results before the right time. We want people to behave according to our wishes. We want control over everything, but existence has its own pace, its own rhythm. You cannot force a flower to bloom before spring. You cannot force a child to become an adult before his time. Everything unfolds naturally. Creativity is to move with this unfolding, not against it. Osho says that man has forgotten this harmony. In the desire for power, we have tried to conquer nature. We cut forests, pollute rivers, and destroy balance. We treat the earth as if it is separate from us, but we are not separate. We are part of the same whole. When we harm nature, we harm ourselves. A creative life cannot exist in conflict with nature. It must be rooted in respect and cooperation. To act in harmony with nature also means to act in harmony with your own nature. Each person has a unique seed inside. An apple seed cannot become a mango tree. A rose seed cannot become a lotus. If you try to be something you are not, you create suffering. Creativity is not about copying others. It is about discovering your own inner nature and flowering according to it. Osho tells us that meditation is the way to find your nature. Silence helps you hear your own inner rhythm. Once you discover who you are, life becomes simple. You stop trying to be someone else. You stop competing unnecessarily. You start living in your own natural way. That is true creativity. He also gives the example of music. In Indian classical music, the musician does not fight with the instrument. He listens, he flows, he becomes one with it. The music is not forced, it arises naturally. In the same way, when you act in harmony with nature, life becomes music. Osho reminds us that existence never makes mistakes. Everything has a purpose. Even what looks like chaos has its own hidden order. Trust that order. Flow with it. Then every action of yours will carry the beauty of nature. At the end of this chapter, Osho prepares us for the next stage. Once you learn to live in harmony with nature, the path of creativity opens widely. But there are still obstacles that stand in the way. These obstacles are not outside. They are inside us. If we can see them clearly, we can overcome them. And so, the next chapter explores these inner blocks. The 5 obstacles. Chapter 6. The 5 obstacles. Osho says that the path of creativity is not blocked by the world outside. The real enemies live inside us. They are like walls around our being. If we do not understand them, they keep us imprisoned. If we become aware of them, they lose power. He calls these barriers the 5 obstacles. The first obstacle is self-doubt. Many people want to create, but they immediately think, I am not talented enough. Who will care about my work? What if I fail? This doubt kills more creativity than failure ever could. Osho says, doubt can be useful in science, but in art and life it becomes poison. The only way to overcome it is trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in life. Trust that existence has given you a unique gift. No one else can express it for you. The second obstacle is perfectionism. We often wait until everything is perfect. The perfect idea, the perfect time, the perfect plan. But perfection never comes. Creativity needs freedom, not perfection. A child does not learn to walk by waiting for the perfect step. He stumbles, falls, gets up, and slowly walks. In the same way, Osho says, create without fear of mistakes. Mistakes are steps to growth. Perfection is the enemy of progress. The third obstacle is fear of criticism. Many people hold back their ideas because they worry about what others will say. What if they laugh at me? What if they reject me? But Osho explains that those who never try are never criticized. Only those who move, who dance, who paint, who speak, are judged. If you want to live fully, you must be ready for criticism. It is a small price for freedom, and often critics only reflect their own limitations. Do not let their voices silence your song. The fourth obstacle is laziness. Creativity requires energy. It requires commitment. Many people have beautiful dreams, but they never take action. They postpone again and again. Osho says, laziness is not rest. True rest refreshes you. Laziness drains you. It comes from inner emptiness. If you want to create, you must replace laziness with playfulness. Work should not feel like a burden. It should feel like play. Then energy flows naturally. The fifth obstacle is imitation. Copying others is the death of originality. We live in a world where everyone is imitating someone else. Children copy parents. Students copy teachers. Artists copy famous masters. But Osho says, imitation may bring safety, never joy. The rose is beautiful because it is a rose, not a lotus. A true creator must discover his own way. Inspiration is fine, but blind imitation destroys individuality. Osho emphasizes that these 5 obstacles are like thieves. They steal your energy. They keep you from becoming who you really are. But once you see them clearly, they begin to dissolve. Awareness itself is the key. At the end of this chapter, Osho reminds us that the easiest way to break these barriers is to reconnect with something we all once had, but later lost. That is the innocence of childhood, the natural creativity, the playfulness, the courage to try without fear. This takes us directly to the next exploration, the child within. Chapter 7. Self-consciousness. Osho explains that one of the deepest chains on human creativity is self-consciousness. To be self-conscious means to constantly look at yourself through the eyes of others. It means to always ask, how do I look? What will they think? Am I doing it right? This constant inner mirror turns life into performance, not expression. He says that children are free because they are not self-conscious. A child dances without thinking about rhythm. A child sings without worrying if the note is correct. A child paints with joy, not with calculation. But as we grow, society begins to teach us. Be careful. Do not look foolish. Do not make mistakes. Slowly, a natural flow turns into self-control, and too much self-control is the death of creativity. Osho reminds us that self-consciousness is born from comparison. We look at others and measure ourselves. We are told we must be the best, the smartest, the most successful, so instead of enjoying the act of creation, we start worrying about results. We fear being judged. We fear being laughed at. We fear being rejected. And this fear makes us stiff like a statue. How can a stiff person dance? The cure, Osho says, is awareness without judgment. If you watch yourself with love, you will see your actions in a new way. You will laugh at your clumsiness instead of feeling ashamed. You will accept your mistakes as part of growth. Awareness is different from self-consciousness. Self-consciousness comes from fear. Awareness comes from freedom. In awareness, you are present, alive, and open. In self-consciousness, you are closed, frozen, and worried. Osho tells a story of Zen masters who often act in ways that appear strange to others. They may shout, laugh loudly, or even hit their disciples suddenly. Why? Because they want to break the shell of self-consciousness. They want the disciple to be shocked out of the constant habit of worrying about, what will people think? In that moment of surprise, creativity can enter. He also points out that self-consciousness is very modern. In old times, people lived simply. They did not think too much about image. But today, with cameras, social media, competition, and constant exposure, everyone is afraid of how they appear. The more we are seen, the less real we become. The more we try to look perfect, the less we feel alive. Osho's advice is simple. Forget the audience. Forget the critics. Do not be a performer. Be a creator. Lose yourself in the act. When you dance, dance so deeply that even you forget who is dancing. When you sing, sing so totally that only the song remains. That is real freedom. At the end of the chapter, Osho prepares us for the next barrier. He says, if self-consciousness is like a prison, perfectionism is like the guard who never lets you out. To understand how perfectionism destroys joy, we must look even deeper into the human mind. And that is where the journey continues. Perfectionism. Chapter 8. Perfectionism. Osho says perfectionism is one of the most dangerous diseases of the modern mind. It pretends to be a virtue, but in truth it is a poison. Many people are trapped in it without even knowing. They think, I must do everything perfectly, otherwise it is not worth doing. This obsession destroys spontaneity and blocks creativity. Perfection is not natural. Look at nature. No tree is perfectly straight. No flower is perfectly symmetrical. No river flows in a perfectly straight line. Yet everything in nature is beautiful, alive, and complete in its own way. Perfection belongs only to machines. Life is not perfect. Life is overflowing, unpredictable, and wild. That is why it is beautiful. When we demand perfection from ourselves, we begin to postpone action. We wait for the right time, the right mood, the right idea. But the right time never comes. The more we wait, the heavier our energy becomes. Soon, the work remains only a dream. Osho says, the danger of perfectionism is not that you do wrong. The danger is that you never do at all. You are frozen in planning. He tells us that perfectionists are never happy. Even if they succeed, they immediately find a flaw. They polish again and again. They rewrite, repaint, rework endlessly. And in this constant polishing, they lose the freshness of life. Creativity is about flow, not about flawless results. A song sung with joy, even if the note is wrong, is more alive than a technically perfect performance without heart. Perfectionism also comes from fear of judgment. We want to protect ourselves from criticism. We think, if it is perfect, nobody can laugh at me. But perfection is impossible. So fear continues, and joy disappears. Instead of being creative, we become anxious. Instead of artists, we become prisoners of our own expectations. Osho suggests a new approach. Forget perfection. Choose playfulness. Do things totally, not perfectly. If you paint, enjoy the colors. If you sing, enjoy the sound. If you dance, enjoy the movement. Do not ask, is this perfect? Ask, is this alive? Does this give me joy? If it gives joy, then it is perfect in its own way. He also warns that perfectionists often become harsh toward others. They judge, criticize, and demand the same impossible standards. This creates tension in relationships. It kills love, just as it kills art. Love grows in acceptance, not in perfection. The true artist, Osho says, is one who can love imperfections. He sees beauty even in brokenness. Like the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold, imperfections become part of the beauty. At the end of the chapter, Osho prepares the listener for the next trap. If perfectionism is an enemy of creativity, so is the overuse of intellect. The mind can calculate, measure, and analyze, but it cannot give birth to life. Creativity needs something more mysterious than logic. It needs intuition, freedom, and a touch of madness. And that brings us to the next exploration. Intellect. Chapter 9. Intellect. Osho says intellect is a beautiful tool, but only a tool. It is like a knife. A knife can cut vegetables, it can also cut your finger. The problem begins when we start worshiping the knife instead of using it. Modern education has made us worship intellect. We have been trained to analyze, to calculate, to argue. But true creativity comes from a deeper source. It comes from silence, intuition, and heart. He explains that intellect is different from intelligence. Intelligence is the whole. It includes mind, body, heart, and spirit. It is alive and flowing. Intellect is only one part of intelligence. It is the analytical side. It can compare, it can dissect, it can put things into categories. But it cannot see the mystery of life. It cannot dance, it cannot love, it cannot create poetry. For example, the intellect can describe a rose scientifically. It can list its chemical properties. It can explain the process of photosynthesis. But the intellect cannot smell the fragrance. It cannot feel the joy of a rose blooming in the morning sun. That belongs to intelligence, not intellect. Osho warns that many people live only in the head. They are constantly thinking, calculating, debating. Their whole energy is locked in words and concepts. This makes them dry, mechanical, and lifeless. They may be efficient workers, but they are not creators. Their life becomes a repetition of old patterns. Intellect also creates doubt. It always questions, but never trusts. It always analyzes, but never surrenders. Doubt can be helpful in science, but in life it can be destructive. A lover who doubts constantly cannot enjoy love. An artist who doubts every brushstroke cannot paint. Creativity needs trust, not endless calculation. Osho does not say we should throw intellect away. He says we must put it in its right place. Use intellect as a servant, not as a master. Let intuition lead and intellect follow. When intellect becomes a servant, it is powerful. When it becomes the master, it suffocates the soul. He gives the example of great scientists who were also poets and mystics in their own way. Einstein spoke of feeling awe when looking at the universe. Newton wrote more about theology and mysticism than about physics. These men used intellect, but they were not limited to it. Their creativity came from something beyond logic. Osho encourages us to create space for silence. When the mind is silent, intuition rises. Intuition is a direct way of knowing. It does not need analysis. It is like a flash of lightning in the dark. It brings clarity instantly. Intellect may take years to reach the same point. Sometimes it may never reach at all. At the end of this chapter, Osho prepares us for another inner chain. If intellect can trap us in endless analysis, belief can trap us in blind acceptance. One is a prison of doubt. The other is a prison of certainty. Both block creativity in different ways. And that is where the journey continues. Belief. Chapter 10. Belief. Osho says belief is another hidden chain that blocks creativity. At first, belief seems positive. It gives comfort, stability, and a sense of belonging. But in truth, belief is borrowed knowledge. It is something imposed from outside, not something discovered within. He explains the difference between belief and trust. Belief is secondhand. It is given to you by parents, priests, society, or tradition. Trust is firsthand. It is born from your own experience. Belief makes you dependent. Trust makes you free. For example, if someone believes in God without ever experiencing silence, love, or prayer, then that belief is only a mental decoration. It has no roots in reality. It can collapse the moment it is challenged. Trust, on the other hand, arises when you experience something directly. When you feel a deep silence, you do not need to believe in peace. You know it. When you love, you do not need belief in love. You live it. Osho says belief is dangerous for creativity because it makes you rigid. A believer cannot explore freely. He is afraid to question, afraid to doubt, afraid to go beyond the boundaries set by his religion or ideology. Creativity requires freedom to explore the unknown. Belief keeps you locked in the known. It gives you secondhand answers instead of encouraging you to ask your own questions. Belief also creates division. One person believes in one God, another in a different God. One group believes in one ideology, another in its opposite. These clashes have created wars, hatred, and destruction. If people trusted their own inner experience, there would be no need to fight. Truth is one, but beliefs are many, and belief kills the openness needed for creative harmony. Osho encourages seekers to drop beliefs and choose inquiry. Do not believe, but experiment. Do not accept, but explore. Be like a scientist of the inner world. Test everything in your own life. If something works, it becomes your truth. If not, let it go. This is the way of creativity. It is not bound by dogma. It is alive, moving, and personal. He reminds us that belief can give temporary comfort, but it is like sleeping under a blanket of illusions. Trust, born of experience, gives real strength. It makes you fearless. It makes you ready to dive into life fully. At the end of the chapter, Osho warns of another subtle trap for creators. Even when we break free from belief, society tempts us with recognition and applause. We begin to create not for joy, but for approval. We become hungry for attention. This is the next obstacle on the path. The Fame Game, Chapter 11. The Fame Game. Osho says one of the most subtle and dangerous traps for a creator is the desire for fame. At first, this desire looks harmless. Who does not want to be appreciated, admired, remembered? But slowly, the hunger for recognition can replace the joy of creation itself. Instead of creating for self-expression, we begin to create for applause. He explains that fame is like a shadow. It follows you only when you walk in the sun of your own being. If you chase the shadow, you lose both the sun and the shadow. In the same way, if you focus on fame, you lose creativity, and fame also slips away. Fame is not a goal. It is only a byproduct. Osho reminds us that the truly great creators never worked for fame. Buddha never tried to become famous. Jesus did not seek recognition. Van Gogh sold almost no paintings in his lifetime, yet he kept painting with total love. Their greatness came because they expressed their truth. Fame followed later, often after their death. When you create for fame, fear enters. Fear of rejection, fear of criticism, fear of being forgotten. This fear blocks the natural flow of creativity. The work becomes artificial, designed to please others instead of expressing the heart. Osho calls this prostitution of talent. Your gift becomes a commodity, not a celebration. He also says fame is never enough. If 10 people praise you, you want 100. If 100 admire you, you want 1,000. It is an endless thirst that can never be satisfied. And in chasing it, you miss the simple joy of being alive in the present. Osho gives a simple test. Ask yourself, if nobody ever knows about your creation, will you still do it? If the answer is yes, then your creativity is true. If the answer is no, then you are only playing the fame game. A dancer who would dance even in an empty room. A writer who would write even if nobody reads. A painter who would paint even if the canvas is never sold. These are the true creators. He points out that fame also makes us slaves of the crowd. We start adjusting our art to what people want. We lose originality. We fear going against the trend. But creativity requires courage to be alone, to walk in your own direction, even if the world misunderstands. As Osho says, the crowd can never understand the real creator in his own time. At the end of this chapter, Osho guides us toward freedom from this game. He says, drop the desire for fame and focus on 4 essential keys. These keys open the door to real creativity. They bring joy, freshness, and courage. They are not about the world outside, but about your inner journey. The 4 keys. Chapter 12, 4 keys. Osho explains that to unlock creativity, there are 4 essential keys. These keys are simple, yet most people overlook them. They are not techniques or rules. They are ways of being, ways of opening yourself to life. When you use them, creativity flows naturally. The first key is relaxation. Relaxation is not just physical rest, it is mental and emotional ease. When you are relaxed, energy flows freely. Tension blocks energy. Tension creates fear, doubt, and hesitation. Relaxation allows you to act spontaneously and with joy. Osho reminds us, even in action, you can be relaxed. A musician may be playing intensely, yet every note flows effortlessly because he is relaxed. Relaxation is the soil where creativity can grow. The second key is courage. Creativity requires stepping into the unknown. It means risking mistakes, facing criticism, and moving beyond comfort zones. Most people are afraid. They prefer safety over exploration. They never try, they never experiment. Courage allows you to be original, to express your unique voice. It is the fuel that turns ideas into creation. The third key is awareness. Awareness is being fully present. It is noticing your thoughts, emotions, and surroundings without judgment. When you are aware, you see opportunities that others miss. You notice patterns, colors, rhythms, and connections. Awareness deepens creativity because you are not living mechanically. You are responding to life directly, not repeating old habits. Osho says awareness is the lens through which the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The fourth key is playfulness. Playfulness is the spirit of a child. It is freedom from rigid expectations, seriousness, and fear. When you play, you experiment, you explore, you invent. Playfulness brings joy into the creative process. It makes work light, spontaneous, and alive. Osho reminds us that children learn, discover, and create without pressure. We must reclaim that inner playfulness. Osho emphasizes that these four keys are interconnected. Relaxation without courage leads to laziness. Courage without awareness leads to recklessness. Awareness without playfulness leads to rigidity. Playfulness without relaxation leads to distraction. Only when all four work together does true creativity blossom. He gives examples from artists, dancers, and poets. Those who follow these keys do not force their work. They flow with life. Their creations carry freshness, vitality, and authenticity. They are not slaves of fame, perfection, or intellect. They create because creation itself is joy. At the end of this chapter, Osho prepares us for the next step. To truly live these keys, we must first reconnect with a state everyone once knew, but often loses: the natural innocence, spontaneity, and openness of childhood. This brings us to the next chapter: Become a Child Again. Chapter 13. Become a Child Again. Osho says that one of the greatest secrets of creativity is to reclaim the mind of a child. A child does not fear, does not compare, does not doubt, and does not seek approval. A child explores, experiments, and expresses freely. This state is not lost forever. It can be rediscovered at any moment if you are willing to let go of the burdens of adulthood. He explains that as we grow, society teaches us rules, restrictions, and judgments. We learn to be careful, polite, and cautious. We are told what is right and wrong, acceptable and unacceptable. Slowly, the natural spontaneity of childhood is replaced with habits of fear and conformity. Our creative spirit becomes boxed in. Osho says that to become creative, you must unlearn some of what you have learned. You must drop the masks, the ego, and the need to please. You must dare to play, make mistakes, laugh at yourself, and follow curiosity. Creativity thrives in this childlike state because it is fearless, fresh, and fully present. A child sees the world with wonder. Every sound, color, and movement is new. Every moment is an adventure. Adults often stop noticing these details. They see the familiar, the ordinary, and they become blind to its beauty. By becoming a child again, you awaken your senses. You begin to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. Osho reminds us that a child does not aim to succeed. The child does not ask, "Will this work? Will I be praised?" The child simply does. This is the essence of pure creativity. When you create without attachment to outcomes, your work flows effortlessly. It is alive, joyful, and original. He also emphasizes play. Play is not a waste of time. It is a practice of freedom. It teaches risk, curiosity, and imagination. Through play, a child experiments, discovers, and learns naturally. Adults must reclaim this quality to unlock their creative potential. Osho gives examples of great creators who maintained childlike qualities. Artists who painted as if no one would ever see, musicians who played for pure joy, and thinkers who asked questions everyone else feared to ask. They did not conform to societal expectations. They trusted their own instincts and followed their curiosity. At the end of the chapter, Osho points toward the next step in this journey. Once you reclaim your childlike spirit, you must combine it with the willingness to learn. True creativity grows when innocence meets understanding. This leads us directly to the next chapter. Be ready to learn. Chapter 14. Be ready to learn. Osho says that creativity cannot exist without a mind that is open to learning. To be creative, you must remain a student of life, no matter your age or experience. Learning is not just about books or formal education. It is about observing, listening, experimenting, and being curious. He explains that many adults stop learning because they believe they already know enough. This attitude blocks growth. They rely on past knowledge and fear the unknown. But creativity is born in the unknown. It thrives in moments of discovery. If you close your mind, you close the door to new possibilities. Osho emphasizes humility as a key to learning. Humility is not weakness. It is the courage to admit, I do not know. This willingness to be a beginner opens the mind. It allows you to see things freshly, as if for the first time. Even the simplest observation can lead to profound insights when seen with openness. He also explains the importance of curiosity. Curiosity fuels creativity. It pushes you to explore beyond the obvious. It encourages questions instead of blind acceptance. A creative person does not settle for easy answers. They probe, experiment, and remain sensitive to subtle details. Osho gives the example of scientists, artists, and thinkers. Their breakthroughs came not from arrogance, but from continuous learning. Einstein questioned what everyone accepted. Da Vinci studied everything around him, from birds to water flow, to create masterpieces. Their openness allowed them to discover connections that others missed. Learning also requires letting go of fear. Fear makes us rigid. It tells us to stay safe, avoid mistakes, and stick to what we know. But creativity needs freedom. It needs the courage to fail and try again. Every mistake becomes a lesson, every experiment a teacher. The mind that is ready to learn embraces both success and failure. Osho stresses that learning is not a destination. It is a continuous journey. The moment you stop learning, your creativity begins to fade. To remain vibrant and original, you must cultivate a mindset of eternal curiosity. At the end of the chapter, Osho prepares us for the next insight. Once we are ready to learn, we can begin to see the extraordinary in everyday life. We do not need distant or rare experiences to find inspiration. The ordinary itself becomes a teacher, and the simple becomes profound. This leads us directly to the next chapter. Find Nirvana in the Ordinary. Chapter 15. Find Nirvana in the Ordinary. Osho says that true creativity does not come from seeking extraordinary experiences. It comes from living fully in the present moment and seeing the beauty in the ordinary. Most people overlook everyday life. They think happiness, inspiration, or creativity can only be found in special events or achievements. But in truth, every moment holds infinite possibilities. He explains that ordinary things, when observed deeply, reveal their secrets. The sound of rain, the scent of flowers, the movement of a tree in the wind, all carry life's essence. When you notice these simple things, your awareness expands. Your mind stops chasing the future or clinging to the past. You begin to experience life as it is. This is where creativity is born. Osho emphasizes mindfulness in action. Cooking, walking, cleaning, or even talking can become meditative acts if done with full attention. When you are fully present, your senses awaken. Colors become brighter, sounds clearer, and ideas flow naturally. Ordinary life becomes extraordinary. Creativity flourishes when you stop separating the mundane from the miraculous. He also points out that society trains us to ignore the ordinary. We rush, distract ourselves with entertainment, and chase superficial goals. In doing so, we miss life itself. The mind becomes dull, repetitive, and mechanical. Osho says, to find nirvana, you do not need to escape the world. You need to enter it fully, with awareness and love. Osho gives examples of great creators who saw the ordinary deeply. Artists paint simple objects with such insight that they appear magical. Writers describe everyday life in ways that touch the soul. Musicians turn daily sounds into symphonies. They do not wait for extraordinary events to inspire them. Their inspiration comes from noticing, listening, and feeling. He encourages us to slow down, observe, and experience life without hurry. Do not dismiss simple moments as insignificant. See the dance of sunlight, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the flow of your breath. Each ordinary moment is a teacher if you pay attention. When you live like this, life itself becomes a canvas for creativity. At the end of the chapter, Osho guides us to the next insight. Once you can see the extraordinary in the ordinary, you can begin to dream boldly. You can imagine, explore, and create without fear. Dreams become bridges between the ordinary and the extraordinary. This leads us directly to the next chapter. Be a dreamer. Chapter 16. Be a dreamer. Osho says that creativity begins with dreaming. A dreamer sees possibilities that others cannot imagine. Dreams are the seeds of creation. Without them, life becomes mechanical, repetitive, and limited. The mind that can dream is free, alive, and connected to the infinite. He explains that dreaming is not about escaping reality. It is about seeing beyond it. A dreamer observes the world deeply and imagines what could be. Dreams allow you to explore, experiment, and envision new forms, new ideas, and new ways of being. They are the first step in bringing creativity into reality. Osho warns that society often discourages dreaming. Children dream freely, but adults are taught to be practical, realistic, and cautious. You must work, earn, and follow rules, society says. Dreams are dismissed as childish or impractical. But Osho reminds us that every great invention, every art form, and every discovery began as a dream. He emphasizes courage in dreaming. Many fear that their dreams are impossible. They stop themselves before even trying. A dreamer accepts uncertainty and risk. They are willing to explore unknown paths. Creativity cannot grow without this courage. Even if a dream seems impossible, the act of imagining opens doors that would otherwise remain closed. Osho also links dreaming with imagination and intuition. Dreams are not bound by logic or intellect. They arise from the deeper layers of the mind and heart. Intuition guides the dreamer toward ideas that reason alone cannot reach. This is why a dreamer is often misunderstood. The world sees only what is ordinary, while the dreamer explores the extraordinary. He encourages us to cultivate a daily practice of dreaming. Spend time imagining without limitation. Visualize, write, or sketch your visions. Do not worry about criticism, failure, or feasibility. Dream for the joy of dreaming itself. Through dreams, creativity begins to awaken and grow. At the end of the chapter, Osho prepares us for the next step. Once you can dream freely, you must begin asking the right questions. Curiosity must move beyond imagination into inquiry. This is the path toward deeper understanding and original creation. This leads us directly to the next chapter. 4 questions. Chapter 17. 4 questions. Osho says that creativity is awakened not only by dreaming, but also by asking the right questions. Questions open the mind, challenge assumptions, and spark insight. Without questioning, the mind becomes stagnant, routine-driven, and limited. Osho presents 4 essential questions that can guide a creative life. The first question is, who am I? This is the deepest question of all. To create, you must understand yourself. Not the self defined by society, education, or family, but the true self, the one that observes, experiences, and expresses freely. When you know yourself, your creativity becomes authentic. It no longer copies others or seeks approval. The second question is, what do I want? Most people live by habits, routines, and expectations. They follow the path laid out for them by others. But a creative life begins with desire. Not desire for possessions or fame, but desire for expression, exploration, and discovery. When you clearly understand what you truly want, your actions align with your purpose. The third question is, what is preventing me? Self-awareness requires honesty. We must see the obstacles that block our flow. Fear, doubt, self-consciousness, perfectionism, and attachment to results are common barriers. By naming and observing these obstacles, we can gradually dissolve them. Only then can creativity flow unhindered. The fourth question is, how can I live fully in this moment? Osho emphasizes that creativity is not in the future or past. It is here, now. Life is happening in each breath, each step, and each thought. When we fully embrace the present, inspiration arises naturally. Every act becomes a potential creation. He explains that these four questions are like a compass. They guide the mind away from distraction, fear, and conformity. They direct attention inward, toward awareness, presence, and freedom. Asking them regularly trains the mind to observe life deeply, notice connections, and spark original ideas. Osho encourages a playful approach to these questions. Do not seek immediate answers. Let the questions sit, simmer, and awaken curiosity. The creative mind thrives in exploration, not in fixed conclusions. The answers will emerge naturally when you are ready, often in unexpected ways. At the end of the chapter, Osho prepares the listener for the next step. Once questions awaken the mind, memory and imagination become the next tools for creation. They transform observation into expression, experience into art, and life into meaning. This leads us directly to the next chapter, Memory and Imagination. Chapter 18, Memory and Imagination. Osho says that memory and imagination are two essential tools for creativity. Memory allows us to learn from the past, while imagination allows us to create the future. Both must work together, but imagination must take the lead. Without imagination, memory becomes repetitive and dull. Without memory, imagination loses depth and grounding. He explains that memory is not just remembering facts, it is the ability to recall experiences, feelings, and sensations. Memory gives texture to creativity. It allows us to draw from what we have seen, felt, and experienced. A painter recalls colors, a writer recalls emotions, and a musician recalls rhythms. Memory becomes the palette from which imagination paints. Imagination, Osho emphasizes, is the power to create what does not yet exist. It is not bound by logic or reality. It allows the mind to explore new possibilities, combine ideas in novel ways, and dream beyond limitations. True creativity arises when imagination transforms memories into fresh, original expressions. He warns that many people misuse memory. They live in the past, clinging to experiences, grudges, or achievements. This traps the mind in repetition and fear. Memory should serve imagination, not imprison it. The past becomes a resource, not a cage. Osho also says that imagination requires courage. To imagine is to step into the unknown. It may feel uncertain, risky, or even absurd. But without this courage, creativity cannot flourish. The childlike mind of wonder and playfulness is essential for nurturing imagination. It allows the mind to explore without self-criticism or fear of failure. He explains that memory and imagination together create a bridge between what is and what could be. They allow you to see patterns, make connections, and discover new perspectives. A creative mind is constantly observing, remembering, imagining, and experimenting. This dynamic interplay is the heartbeat of all artistic, scientific, and philosophical breakthroughs. Osho encourages daily practice. Observe life carefully. Recall experiences fully. Then imagine new possibilities, new forms, and new ways of being. Do not judge, do not censor, and do not limit yourself. Creativity flows when memory and imagination dance together freely. At the end of this chapter, Osho introduces a different kind of creativity challenge. Some creativity is born from suffering, transition, and emotional upheaval. This brings us to the next chapter. Postpartum Depression. Chapter 19. Postpartum Depression. Osho says that creativity often arises from confronting pain and deep emotional experiences. Postpartum depression is one such example. though he does not limit his discussion to motherhood alone. It is a state where life feels heavy, overwhelming, and dark. Many people suffer in silence, not knowing that even such states can become gateways to insight and creativity. He explains that emotional crises break routine and force reflection. When the mind and body are pushed to the edge, old patterns and pretenses collapse. In this emptiness, something new can emerge. Creativity is born not only from joy, but also from the courage to face discomfort and uncertainty. Pain, when observed consciously, can be transformed into expression, understanding, and art. Osho emphasizes awareness in these moments. Do not resist or deny your feelings. Do not label them as good or bad. Simply observe. By fully experiencing the emotional storm, you allow its energy to flow through you. This energy can fuel writing, painting, music, or other forms of creative expression. He also notes the importance of support and community. While inner awareness is essential, no one should face intense emotional states completely alone. Sharing experiences, seeking help, or simply talking can release tension and open new perspectives. This balance between inner reflection and connection is key to transforming emotional depth into creativity. Osho reminds us that the mind often resists pain. It wants comfort, distraction, or escape, but avoidance only prolongs suffering and blocks creative energy. Facing the darkness directly is an act of courage and awakening. The deeper you explore your emotions, the more profound your creativity becomes. He further explains that creativity in such moments is not about producing masterpieces immediately. It is about allowing the self to be fully present, to feel, to breathe, and to respond authentically. Even small acts like journaling, drawing, or composing music become powerful expressions of life. The emotional intensity gives birth to subtle insights and fresh perspectives that ordinary states cannot provide. At the end of this chapter, Osho connects this concept to broader creativity. Emotional experiences, inner reflection, and courage to face challenges are essential for innovation. From this understanding, the mind can explore new combinations, new forms, and new possibilities. This brings us to the next chapter: Creativity and Crossbreeding. Chapter 20. Creativity and Crossbreeding. Osho says that creativity thrives when we mix, combine, and crossbreed ideas. Originality does not always come from creating something entirely new. It often comes from connecting two or more seemingly unrelated elements in fresh ways. This is how innovation, art, and discovery happen. He explains that crossbreeding ideas requires openness. You must explore different cultures, disciplines, and perspectives. You must be willing to borrow, adapt, and experiment. Rigid thinking, narrow focus, or fear of imitation blocks this process. The mind must be curious, playful, and adventurous. Osho gives examples from nature. A hybrid flower, a new species, or a mixed ecosystem demonstrates how crossbreeding creates richness and diversity. Similarly, in human creativity, blending music styles, literary forms, or scientific methods produces unique and vibrant results. Creativity is alive, not fixed. It grows when boundaries are crossed and ideas meet. He warns that many people fear influence. They want to be completely original, untouched by others. But no one exists in isolation. Every thought, every creation is influenced by life, experience, and observation. The key is to use these influences consciously, transform them, and make them your own. Osho emphasizes the importance of play in crossbreeding ideas. Experiment without worrying about rules, critics, or success. Allow chance, accidents, and surprises to guide you. Sometimes the most extraordinary creations emerge from mistakes or unexpected combinations. A curious, playful mind sees opportunities where others see chaos. He also notes that crossbreeding is not limited to art. It applies to every field, including science, business, and everyday problem solving. By combining different approaches, you can discover solutions that are original, effective, and meaningful. Creativity is essentially about connection, synthesis, and transformation. At the end of the chapter, Osho highlights a subtle but powerful truth. Creativity is not only about producing something external, it is also about creating a new way of living, thinking, and perceiving. The ultimate crossbreeding occurs when your inner and outer worlds merge. This understanding naturally leads us to the next chapter. The Art of Money. Chapter 21. The Art of Money. Osho says that money is often misunderstood. It is neither good nor evil. It is a tool. How we relate to it can affect our creativity and freedom. Many people tie their happiness and self-worth to money. They become anxious, greedy, or fearful. This blocks the natural flow of creativity. He explains that the art of money is about awareness and balance. You must know how to earn, spend, save, and share consciously. When you are aware, money becomes a servant, not a master. It allows you to pursue creative work without being enslaved by fear or desire. Osho emphasizes that creativity and money are not enemies. Money can support your exploration, experimentation, and learning. But if your primary motivation is profit, your work becomes mechanical, hollow, and repetitive. True creativity arises when you create for the joy of creating, not for financial reward. He also explains the importance of generosity. When you give without attachment, you free yourself from greed and possessiveness. Sharing your resources, knowledge, or art creates a flow that attracts abundance naturally. Money should circulate like energy. It should support life and creativity, not block them. Osho warns against fear of poverty. Many people limit their imagination because they worry about survival. Fear creates tension and rigidity. Relaxation, trust, and courage allow creative energy to flow, even in uncertain financial situations. The mind that is free from anxiety about money is more open, innovative, and inspired. He gives examples of artists, thinkers, and creators who understood this balance. They did not pursue wealth obsessively. They created masterpieces while living simply, and money followed naturally. Their work remained authentic because it was not driven by greed or fame. At the end of the chapter, Osho points to the deeper meaning of creativity. Money is only a tool. Creation itself, the act of bringing something new into existence, is the true wealth. Understanding this prepares us for the next chapter. Creation. Chapter 22. Creation. Osho begins by saying that creation is the very heartbeat of life. To create is not just to make a painting, write a book, or compose music. Creation is the energy that moves through everything. It is the river flowing, the tree growing, the bird singing. Human beings have the unique ability to participate consciously in this creative flow. He explains that most people confuse creation with achievement. They think creating means producing something that will be remembered or praised. This is a limited view. True creation is not about results. It is about expressing the fullness of your being. It is the act of giving life to what is within you. The outcome may or may not matter. The joy lies in the process. Osho emphasizes that creation requires presence. You cannot create while your mind is elsewhere, thinking of the past or worrying about the future. Creativity blossoms only in the present moment. When you are fully present, life itself starts flowing through you. Every action, even the simplest, becomes a form of art. Cooking, walking, speaking, or gardening, all can be acts of creation if performed with awareness and love. He also says that fear is the greatest enemy of creation. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of loss, all of these block the flow. A person who creates out of fear is trapped. The creation is no longer free. It becomes mechanical, forced, and lifeless. Only when you are fearless can true creativity arise. Osho reminds us that creation is not separate from life itself. Life is creative by its nature. Birth, growth, decay, and death are all acts of creation. By participating consciously, humans become co-creators with existence. This participation is not egoistic. It does not claim ownership. It simply allows life to express itself through your hands, your mind, and your heart. He gives the example of a sculptor. A great sculptor does not impose form on the stone. He discovers the form that is already inside. He removes the unnecessary and allows the beauty to emerge. In the same way, creativity is about discovering what already exists within you and letting it emerge naturally. At the end of this chapter, Osho points toward the ultimate form of creativity. Creation is wonderful, but the highest creativity is to discover the meaning of your life, to live fully, to express your total being, and to merge with existence itself. This is the next chapter. The ultimate creativity. The meaning of your life. Chapter 23. The ultimate creativity, the meaning of your life. Osho begins by saying that all creativity in the world is a reflection of a higher inner creativity. Every painting, poem, invention, or melody points to something deeper. True creativity is not about producing external objects. It is about discovering your own existence and expressing it fully. It is about living your life as a work of art. He explains that most people live in repetition. They follow routines, obey rules, and imitate others. They may create outwardly, but inside, life is dull, mechanical, and empty. The highest creativity, Osho says, comes when you stop imitating and start being yourself. When your thoughts, feelings, and actions arise naturally, without fear or restriction, you are expressing your ultimate creativity. Osho emphasizes self-discovery. Your life itself becomes the canvas. Your choices, your work, your relationships, and even your leisure, all can be creative acts. The key is awareness. When you live consciously, every action becomes alive. Every moment becomes meaningful. Even breathing, walking, and talking can carry beauty if done fully. He also talks about courage. To live creatively is to risk. It is to step into the unknown without guarantees. It is to trust life itself. Fear binds creativity. Freedom releases it. Only those who dare to explore their inner world can experience the ultimate joy of creation. Osho reminds us that ultimate creativity is not measured by fame, money, or recognition. It is measured by authenticity, joy, and the depth of your presence. You do not create to impress others. You create to express your being. And when you do, you align with the flow of existence. You become a co-creator with life itself. He also explains the relationship between love and creativity. Love is the energy of life. When you love deeply, unconditionally, and without expectation, you are naturally creative. Love and creativity are two sides of the same coin. When one blossoms, the other naturally follows. At the end of the chapter, Osho encourages everyone to meditate. Meditation is the doorway to the inner source of creativity. It helps silence fear, doubt, and self-consciousness. It allows life to flow freely through you. And from this inner source arises the ultimate creativity, the full expression of your life. The journey of creativity does not end with skill or technique. It culminates in a life lived fully, authentically, and joyfully. And once we understand this, the rest of the book introduces us to Osho himself and the spaces where this creative energy can be nurtured. About the author. Chapter 24. About the author. Osho, also known as Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, was a spiritual teacher, philosopher, and mystic who inspired millions around the world. He was born in India and spent his life exploring the deepest aspects of human consciousness. Osho's teachings are not bound by any single religion or tradition. He draws from Eastern and Western philosophy, psychology, and meditation practices. Osho encourages people to discover their own truth rather than blindly follow others. He believes that every human being carries a unique spark of creativity within them. His words aim to help individuals awaken that inner light. He does not offer fixed rules or dogmas. Instead, he provides guidance to explore, question, and experience life directly. He was known for his dynamic approach to meditation, combining traditional methods with modern techniques. He emphasized the importance of awareness, silence, and celebration in everyday life. Meditation, he says, is not only about sitting quietly. It is about living fully in every moment, observing your thoughts, emotions, and actions without judgment. Osho was also a controversial figure. Many criticized his lifestyle, his views on society, and his approach to love, freedom, and sexuality. However, these controversies never diminished the impact of his teachings. He continues to influence spiritual seekers, artists, and thinkers across the globe. His books, talks, and discourses cover a wide range of topics, from meditation, love, and creativity, to money, fear, and relationships. He encourages people to question, to experiment, and to break free from limitations imposed by society, culture, and tradition. Osho's life itself was a living example of his philosophy, bold, fearless, and dedicated to exploring the unknown. He also founded communes and meditation centers where people could practice his teachings in a supportive environment. These centers are designed to help seekers experience creativity, awareness, and freedom firsthand. The aim is not just learning but transformation, changing the way you live, feel, and create in every moment. Conclusion. Osho's Creativity. Unleashing the forces within is more than a guide to art or talent. It is a journey into the depths of your own being. It teaches that creativity is not something external. It is the life force flowing through you, waiting to be expressed. Every obstacle, fear, self-consciousness, perfectionism, intellect, belief, or desire for fame can be transformed into a stepping stone. By becoming aware, present, and fearless, you can unlock your true potential. Osho reminds us that the highest creativity is not measured by applause or success. It is measured by authenticity, joy, and the fullness of living. To live creatively is to embrace every moment, to trust your own experience, and to allow life to flow through you. It is to dance, to love, to dream, to explore, and to express the essence of your being without hesitation. Meditation, awareness, and presence are the keys. They help dissolve fear, self-doubt, and external pressures. When your inner world is free, your creative energy naturally manifests in everything you do. Whether you paint, write, sing, or simply walk through life, every action becomes a celebration of existence. This is the ultimate gift of Osho's teachings, the reminder that life itself is art. And now, the journey does not end with listening. It continues in your own life, in every choice, every action, every moment you live fully and creatively. Embrace it, experiment, explore, express. Let your life itself become the masterpiece it was always meant to be. If you enjoyed this summary and want to explore more insights from Osho and other life-changing books, make sure to subscribe. Stay connected and awaken your inner creativity with every story we share.